it works much better if you have a lot of experience in the field, because people like to go into detail. And then if you're a person that goes in detail, then there's nothing worse than putting a sales person in front of you who only knows things high level.
At Elements of Culture, we sit down with experts in leadership and team building to explore the DNA that drives a thriving organization. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elements of Culture. My name is Taryn, and I'm joined with my co-host, Julie. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Huub Wevers. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at Nomentia. This is a European-based company. They have multiple locations across many countries. And Huub, we're so excited that you are jumping on today just to dive into so many conversations about leadership, about culture, sales, and the shifts that you're seeing. But before we get to all of those topics, do you mind to just share with everybody about your background? Because you weren't always in sales. You've been in tech and some other things, but help paint a picture for everybody if you would.
Thank you. Thanks, Taryn. Yeah, I haven't always been in sales. I've been in sales for, let's say, the last 10 years, roughly. Before that, I was actually started in tech, really, just doing tech projects, delivery. And then I somehow ended up, as many people, I think, around that time in banking, and very much enjoyed that. I especially enjoyed the more international nature, worked for a global bank, of course, many countries. And I somehow ended up doing lots of operations, service, more on the, let's say, the implementation, execution, on delivery side of the business. Albeit everybody always referred to me as the person that would go out and have some conversations with clients, etc. So yeah, that was already there. I already there loved talking to clients and trying to see how we could bridge the gaps if there were any gaps there. That was always nice. And then 10 years ago, I maneuvered myself a bit more into sales, try to make it my daily life to actually talk to clients and sell, which I really love. It's actually the hardest part of my current job, that I get to speak to clients a little bit less, which I still do like. So I do still get myself out there for longer sessions that we have to listen, to learn, and hopefully bring a bit of a perspective. I manage a team of 25 salespeople plus a marketing team across 8 countries. And we work in a company, so it's a software company. We make a service a software as a service, which allows corporates to effectively make their payments. So salary payments, supplier payments, and very importantly, allows them to understand how much cash they have, what their forecasted cash is, and what the risks are if you, like in an international environment, are dealing with multiple currencies and doing some lending and things like that. So it's a kind of business which also makes us be very consultative, and it's not something you decide to buy on a Friday afternoon. It's a long process, and so we work a lot along that process with our clients.
That's amazing. Thank you for going into those details. It's the international, the global focus that you have, I think, is so exciting. Might be because my own personal background and just, who we were having a conversation before we started the podcast today, just about, your own personal pull into the global side of business. Let's talk about that a little bit. What is your perspective and your experience that you've been able to have in working across so many different nations? Because I think for some of us leaders, and those that we get to talk to, sometimes we're so focused on just our own market. And as we want to scale as a business, there has to be a level of understanding of what it would entail, what it would look like to scale. So number one, tell us a little bit about what the draw is in working with multiple countries. And then 2, how a business could even begin to position themselves for global expansion.
Yeah, the draw. So for me, the draw has always been in the sense that there's not a one solution for a problem. There can be multiple ways of, and there's multiple roads to Rome, as the saying goes. And you have to experience that yourself a bit. So I worked in a number of countries as well. I worked in the US, in Chicago, worked different places in Europe, and then after the first moment of like, why the hell are they doing it like this here? After you get across that point, you're like, oh, okay. I think they're getting there as well. It's just a different route. And sometimes, yeah, it gives you lots of insight. And I think that's also where, scaling businesses across, jurisdictions in different countries is really important to understand. If you're, for instance, where I am at in the Netherlands, there's a lot of local software companies scaling into Germany. And then you need to understand that if you're wanting to engage and have a conversation with a German client, you just need to multiply the number of meetings times 2, because they're just a little bit more into the detail. They just want to have a more comfort feeling. They're less, I wouldn't want to say adventurous, because they can be adventurous, but on these decisive things, they're really careful and want to understand it better. And there's no good or wrong. It's just that's how people do business, and it's understanding that and not looking at your numbers and say, hey, why do they take so long? Why do we need to have so many meetings? It's adapt and accept.
So, Huub, talk to me a little bit because as we're seeing now, the global market is getting a lot smaller. We're seeing a lot of the companies, even the tech companies and other companies, utilizing resources from all over the world. And so they have multinational teams. Talk to me a little bit about how you lead and help in the collaboration of not only multiple teams and multiple nations, but like how do we help people understand those nuances as you're talking about culturally. And I agree with you on the German side of things, because my husband used to work for a German company and he would tell me, he's like, I don't know why we have all these meetings, but you're right. It's all about the details. It's all about the
What the
details.
details?
Yeah, it's all about the details. So I absolutely understand that. And so, but how do we help a team? Let's say there's a leader here that has multinational teams. How do they help in the collaboration of that and unifying?
Yeah, it's using each other's strengths, because like in the German example, we, for instance, we are, when we're reviewing our contracts, for instance, I would not do the German contracts last. I would start with the German contract. And then also have somebody in Germany, his German sales team, take the lead and point person, and then work our way through that, and then go to the other countries. These are little examples, but it's also, when in my case, I have a number of teams, and teams are geographically organized. So it means that, I have my UK sales head, a DACH sales head, Germany, and that way you can also use each other's strengths to take the lead in different elements of the business, and to lead the way. And it's, and trying to stay away from, the one size fits all, because that's not going to work. There needs to be a foundation. So if you look at a typical sales organization, you always have some sort of a sales operations function. And I think the moment you start hitting more countries, your sales operations starts to become more important. And then not just the number side of business, but around the standardization, for lack of a better word. But it's, okay, which are the parts that we are going to agree on that we're going to do all across, and which are the parts that we can allow people to deviate. So indeed, how do I, a business development person, how are they going to do their outreach per country? Which parts are generic? Which parts are we going to do differently? We at the moment actually are combining a bit sales operations and marketing operations. Same there. We don't want to, some words you simply don't use in some countries and others you do, and the tone and deviate, but they're all running the same campaign, but it's deviating on that level.
And what would you say was the mistake that you see companies make when in regards to international companies?
I think they make the mistake in the hiring process, and I've had my fair share of mistakes there as well. So you typically translate the people that you're looking for in your team. They might have a different nationality, but you're still looking for the same kind of teams. So as an example, in sales, there's always discussions if you're hiring an expert in the area that you're working in, like in my case, treasury, or if you're hiring a sales expert, so somebody with a lot of SaaS sales background. And we have learned also along the way that it simply works differently in some countries. So coming back on the German example, it works much better if you have a lot of experience in the field, because people like to go into detail. And then if you're a person that goes in detail, then there's nothing worse than putting a sales person in front of you who only knows things high level. And there's no right or wrong, but it simply doesn't match. And it's, those kind of deviations. And we see that most, when we have a monthly sales call, and then salespeople get to present new clients that they have brought in and how that process went, what they have learned, and who the client is. And it's always interesting to see that in some cultures, these deals are done much quicker, also from a client side. And typically the new salespeople in other areas, the surprise on their face is always priceless. On like, how do you do this so fast? And they're always coming in thinking there's this magical bullet that they're using or something, until they start realizing, like, okay, that is normal there, but it's a different ballgame.
That's so good. As you're talking about this, Huub, and I think one of the things that you mentioned that really stood out to me is you have to remain adaptable as a team, as a leadership team as well, because each market that you're in, each country, you have to have some flexibility. So you said there's key pieces that stay the same and stay consistent, but then there are other things that you have to have flexibility. And I do think that sometimes in our narrow way of thinking, we don't always make room for another culture or another person's thought process. And you really do have to be open to that, not only from the employee side, but also for your clients.
I mean, we talked before about scaling. In a software business, everybody talks about scaling, because
Sure.
you can use the same software 10 times or 100 times, cost doesn't change so much. In the word scaling already lies the idea that you're scaling the same thing all over to everywhere, doing it all the same. And that's, actually should not be the case. I mean, of course, the for again is the same, but then also within the software, there will be buttons that some countries hardly use and others do. But then the way you bring it and how you sell it is very different. And it's, what I see in practice that it means is that, especially if you grow a bit larger as an organization, is the level of flexibility to deviate on pricing, on how projects are to be delivered, because everything around scaling again is breathing like we have to do it all the same, because then we can scale. And I buy into that for quite a degree, but be careful, because you're there's many cases, and I think American companies, I mean, we talked a bit before, America is a very big continent. Europe is a big continent. In America, things are a bit more similar, especially on the software corporate side. There's a more similar culture than you would find in Europe. And then we see quite a bit, being a European company, that some of our American competitors would be a bit more consistent. But then, you also see where it then leaves opportunities for us very easily, because some countries, it just simply requires a different way of working, and it doesn't fit them in a certain scaling mindset.
So that's so true. I think the flexibility. I want to go back to the sales side just for a moment, before we jump to another topic. On the sales side, what are some of the challenges that you see with your teams? You have multiple sales teams and across different countries. What are some of the big challenges that you see, whether it's with your team or just in the industry in general? But also a second part to that is, what are those challenges and how do they look differently across different countries, or are they the same?
Some of the challenges at the moment are a bit of logically that there's quite a bit of political turmoil. And we are in a space where we're dealing with CFOs who typically are, especially in a corporate setting, are the ones that are carefully monitoring if time is right to make buying decisions, etc. So we find that at the moment it takes a bit more time. So we still do our thing, and that's working. And it's then depending a bit on how, when you're selling into different jurisdictions, how different countries deal with those challenges. And there are, well, actually coming back on the German example, that's actually an example where they might be very careful and a bit more detail focused, but they're actually, they have set their mind. They are going to go and do that project. They want to make those improvements. They want to make their targets and objectives. And they're not going to let themselves stop by outside events within limits, but the current limits, it's still they're pursuing, they're continuing on their journey. Whereas in other markets, we see that sales then needs to adapt quicker and go a bit with the market, which is offering it at a discount or break it up in different sub projects, make it more agile, make the risk a bit lower for the client so they can first try and test and see. And that's where, in different markets, you can adjust differently from a sales point of view. Yeah, that's what we see.
So Huub, I see that you had said that you've been in sales about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about that transition and what are in the past 10 years, what are some things you've learned as a leader, some skill sets, some attributes that you had to shift and kind of grow in as a leader? Because sales is a little bit of a different beast and managing salespeople can be a little bit. So what are some skill sets? Like if I had some young leaders who are looking at this, what do they need to prepare for?
Yeah, well, I have worked quite a lot in managing managers and hiring many people. And I always say in sales, actually, it's the easiest to hire people because if you can't sell yourself, then that's it. For me, sales is a different ballgame from a people management point of view, and you need to strike the balance between being very performance driven and also giving people opportunity to learn and grow, make mistakes. We're sitting in here end of quarter, and there are of course some salespeople now sweating and trying to get this last signature in place, and maybe thinking at that moment like I should have walked procurement through some of the steps earlier. So for me, what I've learned in the last 10 years is to, as some of my sales heads would say, that they're sometimes surprised that I'm keeping quiet longer than they would expect. So if there's, let's say, a discussion and they're feeling very passionate about and not agreeing with some of the things said. And I've learned over the years that sometimes it's good just to let things be out there in the open and then see what's actually the issue and talk it through. Some of the issues, they typically resolve themselves before you even have to worry about them. And it has changed in the sense that, things are faster now. So and I see that with our younger, newer salespeople. AI is a good example. Could have been another example as well, but they're the first ones that are pushing our sales ops teams to try more, to use more of it, to innovate more, to work differently, not to have too many calls on how treasury is changing, but have more calls about how sales is changing, how they can do their work better. And using tools, we have, like most sales organizations, more capabilities now to look back meetings of others because a lot of things are done online. And new, younger salespeople have a tendency of really using more of that. Whereas the older ones are a bit like, why do I have others show my face and let me just do my thing, charging a bit.
So you said today it's the end of the quarter right now, and I know you are over in Amsterdam. So your team still has until the end of business today to come knocking on
Yeah.
the door with their
Well,
win.
it's a 12 o'clock finish time.
Yeah, so they still have time. They still have time. You talked about AI. You talked about some of the technology and things. What do you see as you're looking at trends, specifically in your industry, in the SaaS space and the treasury space? Do you feel like companies are grasping the importance of involving AI in some of their processes and systems? Or do you feel like some companies are falling behind? What's your take on that, and where we might be in the next year or two?
Yeah, so we're in a very data rich environment. So lots of numbers, financial numbers, etc. So we've always had for the last 6-7 years always had on the data side lots of machine learning with groups under AI. So that's something that has already been done quite some time. The newer part is more the generatives, the language models, which is really helping corporates on reporting, etc. Yeah, I think most companies are. Everybody's testing it. And then some of them are actually starting to integrate it in their day-to-day process. I think that for me, it's I don't know. It's a difficult one because for us the biggest gain sits on the data side. So it's really on the machine learning and then combining that with some language models to make it easier to get the data. So instead of having to look at my numbers and say, okay, what's my current exposure in British pounds, I can just type it in and the system will tell me. And that's really powerful. But it's the industry that we're in is changing, and that's the interesting part for me as well, is that the counterparts we're talking to, so our clients are also becoming younger. There's much better mix between men and women, with more women coming in the field because finance has always been pretty male dominated. And that changes dynamics as well, makes the industry a bit more outward looking. And then that's something we on our side have also been trying to do as well, because being in tech is also pretty male dominated, trying to bring in more women, more younger people, and trying to get that outward, more open view. And that's changing. Yeah, and that's good. I like it. Yeah. The interesting part about AI is that what we see now is that because of AI, of course, tooling and mailing and lots of stuff you can do. And we see a bit of a trend at the moment going back to events more. We have, at some point, I think 2 years ago, we were like, well, are the events going to die or just going to be a few of them? But there are actually a few new ones popping up now, and then a bit more new formats, a little bit less on the content, more on the networking, and really allowing more spaces for people to interact and to also just simply talk to us, and instead of being stalked as they perceive it sometimes, having the ability to take it in control and at an event come by and talk.
Yeah, that's so good. I think, for a while, companies, I remember those conversations where everyone was saying, oh, events are going away, all the in person, because tech is driving everything. Everything's going to be remote. And it's like, we're still human. There's still a human element where we enjoy community, we enjoy people. There's an exchange that happens. Even I know this conversation is facilitated through tech, but there's the ability to connect with another human being. And I do think, yes, I think there's a space for the virtual type of engagement, of course. But even like with sales teams, and we talk with so many different companies, Huub, and leaders, that they might have teams across multiple countries and they're still making intention to get together as a team because it brings strength to the team, it brings community. I want to ask you, this conversation has been so good, especially from the global perspective about how businesses can, of course, scale and look at how they want to do that, but remaining flexible. I think that that's so important. As we wrap up, what I'd love to ask you is, for leaders that feel like maybe they know that there's some awareness that they know they need to change maybe the way that they lead to make space for younger generation or newer leaders. Maybe they don't know how to go about doing that. As a leader yourself, what are some ways that you would recommend those stepping into a new type of leadership or making space for others? What are some things that you would recommend them to do on a personal level in developing themselves as leaders?
Yeah, I would, get yourself, of course, involved in projects. Every company, especially, especially in tech, we also are a combination of a few companies that came together. So as a result, in order to get the best out of all the different parts of the organization, you start organizing yourself a bit according to projects to, streamline certain operations, processes, or products, etc. Get yourself involved in the different projects. I thoroughly promote people to really just take the dive and live abroad for some time. I also started by doing during the week only work for a year where I was flying back every weekend. Then when you get the taste of it, you go longer. There's no better way than on a daily basis immerse yourself in a different culture, and then that opens up many things. I can tell when new salespeople come in if they are a bit more multicultural, if they have been living abroad somewhere, because they are typically a bit more flexible in their ways of doing, asking, not making too many assumptions. It's easier to connect. It's
That's so good. Yeah. So remaining flexible and, as you talk about just take the jump, right? Just go live abroad. I agree. I think sometimes we can be so narrow-minded as individuals. And even if it's a short-term, stint of some kind, go get the experience, go immerse yourself in another culture with another people group. I think that we all have something to learn from one another across so many different countries. And we don't always have the right way, right? There's room for everyone.
No, there is hardly a right way. There's a just way maybe, but right way, I find it hard to see. It's that makes it fun.
It does.
It's yeah,
It
it's good.
absolutely does. Well, Hope, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast for Elements of Culture. You certainly have brought many elements to your cultural background, and we so appreciate your leadership. And we look forward to keeping in touch with all the things that you have your hands set to. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you for having me, both of you.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome.